The key stakeholders, who are they? How do they buy? Why? Why would they want to buy from you? And more importantly, how do I get them to reveal and to connect with me? On today's episode, we're going to give you some ideas about how you can make sure you're having this type of relationship or getting to this point where you're connecting with those key stakeholders. Check it out. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And I appreciate you subscribing to this podcast, telling your friends about it, and just getting the word out. This show is designed to do two things. One, help you to 3 to 5x your sales pipeline, and two, help you to double the amount of deals you're closing. And that's our promise. Every piece of content is going to gear towards that. And today is no exception. Today we have David Fink on a podcast. Let me tell you a little bit about David. He's a top sales revenue growth mentor for consultants, executives, and coach, and a B2B expert who wants to help you get bigger clients and better clients, help you to get the bigger deals, and also to help you to get to the higher fees. And today he's going to break down specifically how we could get to that when it comes towards the stakeholders. Because if you're not having conversations with the right people, you're pretty much like dead in the water. We need to make sure we get to the point where we are having engaging conversations. But it's not just that. How do we identify who those people are? And what do we do to engage them? We're going to break that down for you. We're going to give you some of those insights. If this is your first time, again, listening to the show, please go ahead and subscribe. Check out our sponsors. I know you're going to find great benefit from it as well. Let's go ahead and dive into the conversation with David. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm looking forward to this. Everyone knows that right now the name of the game is not so much as, the more is better. It's not that. It's got to be around this idea of quality, engaging, and content that ties to me as a prospect. How can you connect with me as a key stakeholder? And this is why I want to have this conversation, for us to figure out ways that we can best engage. And I know you have some insights that can help us with that, to be able to better engage with our ICP and those key stakeholders. But before we do that, you all are doing some fascinating things. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about you and what some of the things that you guys are doing?
Sure. So I have been in the consumer internet space for close to 25 years at this point, lived through lots of different economic cycles, media, innovation cycles, consumer behavior cycles. I've spent about half my time building marketing technology platforms and the other half building consumer brands that really had the ability to compete in complicated market spaces because they were built kind of foundationally on understanding how to leverage test and optimization, quantitative marketing strategies that I think we all as marketers now kind of take for granted, but certainly didn't 15 years ago, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. My current company is Postie, and we've working on bringing kind of all that's been kind of innovative and great in the data-driven approach to digital media, but to traditional media world. And the place that we play is direct mail. So without going too deep into it, the idea is most digital marketers have come to rely on all sorts of technology to make them efficient, to give them insights, to drive efficiency within their marketing plans. Traditional media is still playing catch up, and there's no reason for it. So that's where we spend our time.
Love it. Well, let's go into this idea, because in order to send something in a physical mail, you got to make sure you understand who you're working with, because it becomes pretty costly in comparison to just sending out a bunch of emails, right? So you got to make sure you understand that. But ICP is everything. Why do you feel so strongly about that?
Sure, and we spend most of our time in thinking about mapping, understanding the concept of ideal customer profile in our own sales efforts. So certainly we can talk about the targeting that goes into making direct mail efficient, but in our world, we have a sales team that's job it is to go out into the world and identify prospects that would benefit from our services and technology, and and they have to figure out ways to tell our story in a way that is compelling and drives engagement so that we can get into sales cycles with meaningful prospects. And look, it's midway through 2023. It's not getting easier out there. Businesses are being more thoughtful. They're trying to do more with less. They're more mindful of budget as we've all kind of hit headwinds. And it's all about efficiency. So, I think when money's flowing and business is easy, it's easy for us to cast a wide net and just know that we're, anywhere we go, anywhere we're mining for prospects, anywhere we're doing outreach, we're going to find someone willing to talk to us that has budget to work with us, try our product or service. But when things get tighter, you got to find those companies that you're the ideal fit for. And what that means is, you have to put more time and effort into knowing who your customers are, knowing what segments within the market that you're best fit for, that you're most likely to drive a benefit for. And there's just more responsibility put on an organization, a sales organization, a marketing organization, to know their various customer profiles. So in our world, we've seen it firsthand. Look, we came out of the hottest economy I think the world's ever seen, just 18 short months ago. And I saw just tremendous deal flow, tremendous pipeline within our organization. Companies that were big, meaningful Fortune 100 brands were entering our pipeline, and lots of long tail customer or prospects that I had never heard of, but were early in their journey or still selling interesting products. Now we're in a world where it only makes sense to spend time on outreach with those customers or those prospects that are just that are the perfect fit for us. And the reason being is that everybody is really, has, look, there's been, most companies have had some kind of tightening of personnel. There's fewer employees that are expected to deliver, comparable results to how they do with bigger teams. And uh, and if we're going to be successful as a sales organization, efficient as a sales organization, we need to make sure that we're having conversations with those people who we can benefit most. That takes a lot of work on our part.
Yeah, and I think it obviously it go back to the last piece. There takes more work on our part as a sales organization, because we can't expect the buyers to be able to tell us how to sell to them. We need to make sure we understand. They can't tell us how to sell. Like I mean, I'm sure they can, but that's going to be not. No one's going to do that. We need to make sure that we're understanding them enough that we can present a solution, because they're trying to keep their business afloat and moving forward. But when it comes towards engaging them, come towards getting them to the table, it's critical to do that. You mentioned something that they may change based on macroeconomics. Who are the key players? Talk to me a little bit more about that. How can that? Why would that change? Why would the key stakeholders change with economic or macroeconomic changes?
Yeah, and we can talk about that a little bit, and then I think we can even just start by talking about you know I think step one is knowing your ideal customer profile from a business perspective, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
a segment of the market from a series of companies that we've done our homework on, that we have deep industry expertise on, that we've delivered tremendous results on in the past, that we're highly confident if engages with our product or service will get benefit from us and likely become long-term customers, meaningful customers to us. But we can't just snap our fingers and make them show up. The key is to
No.
identify who the decision makers are, who the influencers are within those organizations, and and engage those people as people, not just as, hey, your company's within our ICP. We've defined it as a company that we think we could provide real benefit from. And therefore, regardless of who you are, you should listen to us, take us seriously, take a meeting with us, and buy from us. It's not how it works. Every individual in a company has a different set of responsibilities, different experiences. Um, Not everybody's a decision maker, not everybody's an influencer, not everybody has that same history to engage in a prospect buying cycle the same way. And so If you've identified your ICP or a segment of your ICP, the next step is you got to understand, you got to map that organization. You need to understand who are the prospect buyers within that organization. Could be one division, could be multiple divisions. How are those divisions, structured from a personnel perspective? Who is the decision maker? Who's the influencer? Are there multiple at each level? Then you start moving into that question that you just asked, which is how does that change as kind of macroeconomic cycles change? Well, let's just take number of people on a team, right? We've all read headlines about, this company laid off 30% of their workforce. This company just laid off their entire team and is rebuilding from the ground up. Well, if that's the case, that means that there are fewer people that you can engage with. And there are likely more people that have more there are fewer people that have more responsibility. So when you start thinking about how to engage those people, you have to have some empathy. You have to understand that hey, the people that you're reaching out to, that you're prospecting, that you're trying, your best to draw attention with and engage, get a meeting with, let alone, build a pipeline opportunity, their responsibilities most likely changed. They're likely, when the economies, are a little bit, tougher out there, they're likely working longer hours. They're likely more stressed, both for the longevity of their own position, but also their ability to hit certain goals within their organization. And so the way that we engage and talk to these people need to change. They're human beings, and their roles, responsibilities within their organizations have changed. There's no one size fits all that that this is how a specific content at one of your prospect target accounts is going to behave or think. Every company's different. Every company gets restructured differently. Every company changes objectives based on their place in the economy differently. But the key is that you need to understand that and have some awareness that there's change.
Yeah, I like that. Be aware that there is change. Important. Who are the players? How are decisions made? That's an important step that we need to understand. Talk to me a little bit more about how you go about doing that.
Yeah. So I think that's in many ways the crux of owning a really good strong sales cycle. We've talked about defining your ICP and making sure you're spending time with clients that are that you have a high probability of being meaningful to. We've talked about mapping those organizations and defining roles, understanding who the influencers are and who the decision makers are. And we talked about the fact that you have to have some empathy and recognize that not every decision maker influencer behaves the same depending on what's going on within the macro trends or even trends within their market or their individual business. Very rarely in our world where we're selling a fairly sizable commitment, both based on budget and personal investment, commitment to making the direct mail channel work, is there going to be one singular decision maker? In our world, there are data teams that get involved. There are design and brand teams that get involved on storytelling. There are media buying teams. There are marketing teams held accountable for the specific KPI. And each one of those, individuals or divisions, especially in the bigger enterprise companies, are stakeholders in the decision. And so we certainly have found and I think repeatedly kind of proven that the bigger companies have either formal or informal decision buying committees. There has to be a consensus that's formed internally in order to get to a yes when you're asking for a big commitment. And one of the biggest challenges that I think any sales organization has is that you're unlikely to be in the room at the time that decision is being made. You don't work at that company, right? And so
Yep.
your job is to educate. Your job is to help as many individuals, influencers, and decision makers in the organization understand the value that you provide. Feed them the answers to the questions that they've shared that are important to them in their decision making process, and and give them the talking points they need in order to come to consensus in a closed room that you're not involved in. In our world, we oftentimes find that we're selling into individuals that are influencers but not decision makers. And that's because the size of the budget is very high. But oftentimes, when a brand is leaning in with us, they're leaning in because they're testing, exploring something new. And so you're not going to get the CMO's investment at that time. We'll end up there 6 months
Mm-hmm.
later, a year later, when we become more meaningful. And so we spend a lot of time and energy thinking about how do we arm our influencer, build them, make them a champion, a believer in the channel and our product and service. And then at the end of the day, there has to be a leap of faith that they can present that content, our sales pitch, our differentiation, our benefits to the ultimate decision maker and get to yes. And that's a challenge for, I think, any sales organization.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that tremendously. I feel like just go back to one of the things you said, not being present in the room. And I think so often we feel that, yeah, we gave them a proposal, we gave a really good demo, we gave them a recording, therefore they can sell it for us, or they're gonna, or we naively think that automatically, this deal is going to go through. But it's important that we realize that, yeah, we got to get a seat at that table and try to figure out a way to, I think you said it several times, like I use that term meaningful, or tying back to that proper engagement. So really like that thought. Now the next, and so if I want to figure out how the decision is made, um, how do you tactfully do that without necessarily coming across as like just like a salesperson? Basically saying, I just want to see when I'm going to get my money. How do I tactfully do that to figure out how those decisions
Uh,
are really being made?
That's a great question, and I can't tell you how many sales team members, especially starting their career with us, are afraid to ask some of those questions. They
Why
think
do you feel that they're afraid? What did they tell you,
you can just see
or
that
what do you
they feel
glean?
like they're going to offend someone, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those questions that I think naturally has risk of putting the prospect on the defense. Hey, are you someone that can say yes here? Hey, are you important enough within your organization? Hey, your title doesn't seem to have the right cachet to be able to say yes to me. Like I get that, but there are there are certain, I think, give and takes in any relationship, and a sales relationship is a give and take, and
Hmm.
especially if you do a good job building rapport, if you do a good job, first, having confidence and believing that you belong in that room, that you're not just a salesperson, that you're someone that's bringing a solution, being consultative, is there for a reason, because you really believe that your product or service can solve a pain point that the prospect buyer has. That's step one. Then you're an equal playing ground. Playing field. It's not I'm the seller and you're the buyer, and therefore you have more power than I have. We're both trying to do things to help our companies, and let's see if we can help each other. Help our companies. Two, I think discovery is everything in general, and
Yeah.
there's you know look, like, everybody's been to a good doctor and a bad doctor, a doctor that has a good bedside manner and a bad bedside manner, and you, like, before you know it, you're like being grilled, and you feel like I must have every disease possible and every illness possible and whatnot. Or you have someone who makes you feel comfortable and willing to open up and really does present as wanting to make sure that you're a healthy person and that they're looking out for your best interest. Salespeople can do the same thing. And so when you go into discovery, if you just start grilling someone from a list of questions, and I need to get this answered and this answered and this answered and this answered, because I'm going to go and, like, enter this data into a database somewhere else, and then I'm going to hammer you based on your responses, like, yeah, you're going to push someone back on their heels. But if you just engage in a conversation, you're curious if the research that you did is accurate, if they're as similar to other companies that you already service, that are getting benefit from you as you thought, if you got their professional background correct and their role and responsibility is there. If it becomes a dialogue, understanding if all the effort and energy that you put in to spending time trying to get in a room with that person or on the phone with that person, on the Zoom with that person, then it does become just a natural conversation, and that discovery doesn't feel threatening, doesn't feel painful. It's you're asking questions and engaging in conversation in order to validate what your hypothesis was, and if you do that, then asking questions like, hey, it really sounds like you're recognizing the value in what we're offering here. Help me understand, like, who else on your team is involved in vetting out a solution like us. Who do we have to convince? What does the decisions process look like at your organization? How do you budget? Help me understand what I need to know in order to make sure that we have an opportunity to keep talking here, because there seems like there is a really good fit. You have that
Yeah.
conversation, then you're more likely to get some honest data back. And then look, it's one step forward, one step back sometimes in sales. So I can't tell you the number of times that a team member comes in and is like, okay, I thought I had yes, and I just found out, like, when I actually presented our proposal, that the budget was too big, that this person who told me all along could greenlight the deal can't actually greenlight the deal because we asked for 4x what they thought we were going to ask for, and so now there's another decision maker, and you're back to kind of not necessarily square one, but it's a matter of, can I get in the room with the decision maker? Do I have to empower the influencer now, who I thought was a decision maker, to go and try and build consensus from his or her boss? So I don't think I'm saying anything that your listeners don't deal with on a daily basis, but I know sometimes hearing it from an outside source, another third party, validates that yep, sales is not an easy job, but there
Mm-mm.
are thoughtful ways to create leverage and have a higher probability of engaging with the type of clients that we need in order to grow our business.
Love it, man. Well, let's take us home. Let's talk about the last one: personalization and content. How does that help us with as it comes to engaging those key economic buyers and those stakeholders?
Well, I think personalizations both at the company level and at the individual role level, especially the bigger the company is that you're engaging with, the more layers of management, the more layers of individuals within that organization. And so you certainly you need to be able to engage in an informed conversation. So you need to know the vertical, you need to do your research and understand who this company is, how they're similar or differentiated from their competitive set, how they're similar, differentiated from some of your other clients, so that you can speak educationally based on understanding how your product or service, can potentially fill a need. But then you also need to personalize based on the specific, individual you're talking to, and that can be based on their personal, their professional experience, how many years in their industry, how long they've been at the company, what their core roles and responsibilities are. It could also be based on who they are as a person, where they came from. You know, uh, do they have a specific background? Were they an athlete? Are they more academic? Where did they go to school? What are the experiences that they may have had that you can tap into to have a more appropriate and engaging conversation? No different than you would if you were meeting a new friend or someone at a bar, or talking to another parent at a little league game or whatnot. You got to get to their level if you want to have real rapport and that term again, meaningful conversation, meaningful dialogue.
Love it. Um, Listen, we've discussed a lot of great insights that can help us when it comes to those economic buyers. If there's one major takeaway you want folks to leave this episode with, what's that one major piece of advice, Dave?
To me, it's you got to put in the legwork. I very much believe that information is power, and quite frankly, if you're an inquisitive person, whether you're successful in a specific prospecting initiative or sales cycle, you're going to learn something from it. You got to go in with your hypothesis. You got to do the work to run your experiment, whether that's the way that you run a specific meeting, the way that you wrote a personalized outreach to a specific person that you did your research on at a specific company that you did your research on. You start with a hypothesis, you do the work, which is the research, you practice, you execute the best experiment you can, and then you learn from the results. And I 100% believe that if you work that cycle over and over again, you will be successful, you will learn, and you'll find personal satisfaction in your job.
Love it. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today. Really appreciate you and your willingness to help us out with this insight. If folks want to get in touch with you and to learn more about you, what are some of the what you guys are doing? What's the best way for them to go about doing so, Dave?
Sure. So best way to find information on our business is at our website. We put a lot of time and effort into publishing content that we find valuable. It's postie.com, postie.com. And then for me personally, LinkedIn and LinkedIn Messenger are my is my communication channel of choice. I get to kind of see what your background is, what you're working on, so I know who I'm talking with, and easier place to carry out an initial business introduction.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for the ideas. Thanks for coming on the show today, and appreciate you, Dave.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed the conversation.
Man, I'm telling you, David came, he saw, he conquered, and he delivered. He gave us some great insights. I hope that you listened very closely, that you took some of those things, and that you go out and go identify those key stakeholders and also engaging them in the conversation, engaging them in that meeting, getting them to give you the things that you need, and also how you can best help them overcome their own challenges. Listen, find all the details in the show notes to connect with David. Take advantage of every piece of content that we broke, the show notes here that we broke down for you, because it's going to be liquid gold, and that's going to help you out. I don't know why I said liquid gold, but it's going to be gold. So take it, I guess, ear gold, audio gold, and visual gold as you read those things again. Thank you again for being here. Super appreciate you and your willingness to be able to help us to get the message out. This podcast, again, is designed to help you to 3 to 5x your sales pipeline and also close twice as many deals. Go ahead and connect with me on LinkedIn. If you're interested in learning from our team and how we can help you, can check out our upcoming cohorts, whether it's for our LinkedIn prospecting course or whether it's for one of our sales foundation or just one of our masterminds. We'd love to have you join or group coaching. Find all the details in the show notes. As always, I want you to raise your level of thinking. I want you to go out and do big things. Thanks so much for watching.